Caleb Reed was still holding the safety release clipboard when Amelia Kade fired him in front of half the company. The morning sun hit the glass entrance of Kade Automotive Defense so sharply that everyone on the proving ground had to squint, but nobody looked away. Engineers stood beside a row of polished display banners. Executives checked their watches. Camera crews waited near the launch platform, behind the security rail. Caleb's 10-year-old daughter Emma sat on a folding chair with her backpack between her shoes and a small black toy SUV in her lap, watching her father stand alone in the open concrete yard. Amelia Kade did not raise her voice at first. She did not need to. She was a billionaire founder, the kind of woman who could make silence feel like a command. Her cream suit was perfect, her dark hair pulled back, her expression smooth enough for investors and sharp enough for enemies. She looked at the unsigned release form on Caleb's clipboard, then at Caleb's face, and gave a small, disappointed smile. "You are not doing this today," she said. Caleb's work jacket was faded at the elbows. His boots were dusty from the outer test loop. He had slept 4 hours driven Emma to school before remembering it was a teacher planning day and brought her to the facility because the launch was supposed to be short. He looked less like the man who had spent 4 years validating the Sentinel X armored Convoy platform and more like a tired single dad who had forgotten how to ask the world for a break. "I can't sign it," he said. A few engineers exchanged glances. Victor Shaw, the launch director, stepped closer with a tablet in one hand. "Caleb, we have been through this. The heat run passed. The load run passed. The steering correction run passed. You're holding up a federal evaluation because of a scenario the lab cannot reproduce. The lab keeps separating the variables." Amelia's smile disappeared. "The lab is staffed by 12 engineers and 3 simulation teams, and none of them drove the West Ridge Loop with full armor, high cabin temperature, and a left correction over broken pavement." Victor made a quiet sound, almost a laugh. "Because that is not a standard launch condition." Caleb looked toward the 10 black Sentinel X SUVs parked beyond the banners. They were beautiful in the way expensive machines often were before the road taught them humility. Glossy black armor panels, heavy glass, reinforced frames, silent electric assist steering, run-flat tires, the kind of vehicle that made executives feel safe just by standing near it. "It is a convoy condition," he said. Amelia turned just enough for everyone to see her patience end. "Mr. Reed, today is not about your personal obsession with an edge case. Today is about an $800 million executive protection contract. Today is about a company you do not run, investors you do not answer to, and a federal evaluation team that will arrive expecting confidence, not superstition." Emma's fingers tightened around the toy SUV. Caleb saw it. That was the part that hurt. Not Amelia's words. Not Victor's smirk. Not the executives pretending to study their shoes. It was his daughter seeing at 10 years old how powerful adults treated a man who refused to lie for them. "I'm not asking you to cancel," Caleb said. "I'm asking you to run the full combined condition before you release it." Victor stepped in quickly. "We already have enough data for provisional readiness." "No," Caleb said. "You have enough data to make the deck look clean." That did it. Amelia's eyes hardened. She turned to security. "Escort Mr. Reed off the property." The yard went silent. Caleb did not move at first. He looked down at the employee badge clipped to his jacket, the same badge that had opened gates for 11 years. He had used it before sunrise in winter, after midnight in summer, on days when Emma had fever, and he still came in for a 4-hour test because there was no one else who knew the old field sequence. He unclipped it slowly and held it out. Amelia looked almost satisfied. "You are terminated effective immediately." Victor reached for the clipboard. "I'll take the release packet." Caleb kept his hand on it. "It remains unsigned." Victor's face tightened. "You no longer have authority over it." "I never had authority over the truth, just my name." The line did not sound dramatic when he said it. Caleb was not a dramatic man, but it traveled through the group anyway, landing in places people did not expect. One of the younger engineers looked up. A technician near the test bay stopped rolling a cable. Emma stared at her father as if trying to memorize how he could sound calm when everyone else wanted him to shrink. Amelia stepped closer. "You should be careful, Caleb. Men who confuse stubbornness with integrity usually leave with neither." Caleb placed the badge on Victor's tablet instead of into Amelia's hand. Then he folded a copy of his field report, slipped it into the inside pocket of his jacket, and walked toward Emma. "Come on, kiddo," he said softly. Emma stood clutching the toy SUV. "Are we leaving?" "Looks like it." "Did you do something wrong?" He looked at her for a moment, and the whole launch yard seemed to fade behind her face. "No." "Then why are they making you go?" Caleb swallowed. There were answers too heavy for a child and lies too ugly for a father. Because sometimes people want the answer to be yes before the test is finished. Emma did not understand all of it, but she understood enough to look back at Amelia with hurt anger. Caleb placed a hand gently on her shoulder and guided her toward the main gate. They had only made it past the visitor sign when the first black SUV rolled through the security entrance. It came slowly, headlights on, moving, with the quiet precision of a vehicle driven by someone who did not need to hurry because everyone else would wait. Then a second SUV followed. Then a third. Then a fourth. The security guard stepped back from the lane, confused. By the time the 10th black SUV turned into the proving ground entrance and stopped in a perfect line behind the first, the entire launch yard had gone still. These were not the display vehicles near the banners. These were federal evaluation units, each marked only by temporary inspection plates and matte black convoy numbers. Real load configuration, real equipment, real stakes. Amelia froze halfway through a sentence she had been saying to Victor. The camera crew turned instinctively toward the convoy. Executives who had watched Caleb's firing like a minor inconvenience suddenly stood straighter. The driver of the lead SUV stepped out and opened the rear door. A woman in a dark suit emerged, tall, formal, and expressionless. Eleanor Price, Federal Procurement Director. She carried no entourage beyond the convoy itself, which made her seem more powerful, not less. She looked at the banners, then at Amelia, then past her toward the gate where Caleb stood with his daughter. "Where is Mr. Caleb Reed?" she asked. Amelia blinked. "Director Price. Welcome. We were just preparing." Eleanor did not look away from Caleb. "Is that him?" Every head turned. Caleb felt Emma's hand slip into his. Amelia recovered quickly, or tried to. "Mr. Reed is no longer with Kade Automotive Defense as of a few minutes ago. We have senior personnel ready to walk you through the readiness package." Eleanor's face did not change. The readiness package lists Caleb Reed as designated independent field validation lead for Sentinel X convoy behavior. Victor stepped forward. "Director, I'm Victor Shaw, Chief Program Engineer. I can brief the—" "I know who you are." Eleanor's tone did not soften. "I asked why your designated validating specialist is standing outside the gate with a child, while 10 federal evaluation vehicles are waiting for his certification review." Nobody answered. The moment stretched. Amelia's polished launch day, her banners, her cameras, her speeches about innovation and confidence, all of it seemed suddenly built around an empty chair she had just thrown out of the building. Emma whispered, "Dad, are they here for you?" Caleb looked at the 10 black SUVs lined up like a question no one could ignore. Apparently, Eleanor walked toward him, stopping a respectful distance away. "Mr. Reed, I am Eleanor Price. We spoke by phone last quarter." "Yes, ma'am. I read your conditional readiness notes." Amelia crossed the yard quickly. "Director Price, there has been an internal personnel issue. It will not affect the evaluation." Eleanor finally looked at her. "A firing during final evaluation morning is not an internal issue if the terminated employee is named in the procurement file. He refused to sign a release supported by my engineering team. Then I assume he had a reason." Amelia's face tightened, an unverified edge case concern. Caleb said nothing. Eleanor turned back to him. "Mr. Reed, do you stand by your refusal?" Caleb looked once at Emma, then at the vehicles. "Yes. Can you explain it in plain language?" Victor muttered, "Here we go." Eleanor's eyes cut to him. "Mr. Shaw, I recommend silence unless you are answering a direct question." The young engineers near the test bay suddenly found the concrete very interesting. Caleb drew a breath. The Sentinel X passes heat alone. It passes armored load alone. It passes evasive steering correction alone. But under full convoy load with cabin heat-up, rear armor weight biased, and abrupt lane correction over uneven surface, the steering assist response lags just long enough to confuse the stability controller. The vehicle does not lose control completely. That is why it looks clean in normal testing. But the correction delay can cascade in convoy spacing. Eleanor listened without interruption. "Can you reproduce it?" "Partially with one vehicle, fully with 10 under proper conditions." Amelia stepped in. "We are not running a dramatic unsafe test on launch day because a former employee has a theory." Caleb looked at her. "It is not a theory if the road already showed it to me." Victor shook his head. "His so-called road event happened on an outer loop with incomplete instrumentation. Because your team canceled the full instrument run after my first warning." Victor's cheeks flushed. "We prioritized controlled testing. You prioritized passing." The words hit harder because Caleb did not raise his voice. Eleanor looked at Amelia. "I want the partial reproduction first. One vehicle. Controlled lane correction. Heat and ballast matching field notes. If Mr. Reed is wrong, we continue. If he is right, we stop. Amelia's mouth opened, then closed. She understood the trap. Refuse and the procurement team would know she feared the test. Accept, and she risked proving. The man she had fired was the only adult in the room. Fine, she said. One vehicle. Caleb knelt beside Emma. I need you to stay with Miss Alvarez at the admin desk. He nodded toward a receptionist who had watched Emma during past late shifts. Emma shook her head. I want to watch. It may be boring. You always say that before something important. Despite everything, Caleb almost smiled. You are too smart for my own good. She held out the toy SUV. It was black chipped on one corner and had a tiny silver star sticker on the hood. Take it. He looked at the toy. For luck. No, Emma said. So they remember you have one too. He understood what she meant. One SUV in his hand. 10 real ones behind him. One father being treated like nothing. A child insisting he still belonged in the story. Caleb took the toy and slipped it into his jacket pocket with the field report. The test bay changed quickly once Eleanor gave the order. Technicians who had avoided Caleb's eyes 10 minutes earlier now looked to him for instructions without quite knowing how to do it. He did not punish them for that. He asked for ballast blocks, thermal conditioning, steering log access, and the old uneven surface strip near the west side of the proving ground. Victor objected twice. Eleanor overruled him twice. Amelia watched from behind, the safety glass arms crossed. Expression frozen between fury and fear. Caleb chose Sentinel X Unit 3 for the partial reproduction. Not because it was worst, because it was average. Average mattered. If an average unit showed the lag, the problem belonged to the platform, not a bad sample. A younger engineer named Talia approached him quietly while the vehicle warmed. I saw your field note last month, she said. Caleb checked the tire temperature reading, and I thought it made sense. Did you say that in the review meeting? She looked down. Victor said it would confuse the release. Caleb nodded. He was not angry at her. Fear moved downhill in companies. By the time it reached younger engineers, it often looked like obedience. Today is a good day to be less confused. Inside the observation room, Eleanor stood with a tablet. Amelia stood beside her as if proximity could restore control. Victor managed the main display, jaw tight. Emma sat behind the glass with the receptionist, her hands folded around the empty space where the toy SUV had been. Caleb drove the Sentinel X to the start marker. The cabin heat was raised. The ballast duplicated armored passenger and equipment load. The steering assist data streamed live. The first pass was clean. Victor looked almost triumphant. The second pass showed a small correction delay, not enough to alarm anyone who did not know what to watch. Within tolerance, Victor said. Caleb did not respond. He reset at the marker. On the third pass, he entered the uneven strip at the exact speed from his field notes, not reckless, not dramatic, just real. At the lane correction cone, he turned left, then corrected right as the surface pitched under the loaded rear side. For less than a second, the vehicle felt as if it were thinking too long. The steering assist caught late. The stability controller added brake bias a fraction behind the driver input. A warning flashed, disappeared, then flashed again. In the observation room, the live data spiked. No one spoke. Caleb brought the SUV to a controlled stop at the far marker. He kept both hands on the wheel for a moment, feeling the machine settle beneath him. It had not crashed. It had not failed in a way cameras loved. That was why dangerous truths were easy to dismiss. They often arrived as a fraction of a second. Eleanor's voice came over the radio. Mr. Reed remained stopped. Victor was staring at the data. That could be calibration noise. Talia, standing behind him, whispered it matched his note. Amelia turned slowly toward her. Eleanor did not miss it. Put the field note on the main display. Victor hesitated. Now, Eleanor said. The field note appeared beside the live data, Caleb's warning from 3 weeks earlier. Same speed band, same load condition, same uneven surface input, same assist lag, same brake bias response. The room went silent. Not because a vehicle had exploded, not because the test was spectacular, because the proof was small, clean, and impossible to flatter away. Eleanor looked through the glass at Caleb still sitting alone inside the Sentinel X. Mr. Reed, she said over the radio, is this the full failure condition? Caleb looked at the line of 10 black SUVs waiting beyond the test bay. No, ma'am, he said. That is the first knock on the door. Amelia closed her eyes for one brief second. Everyone saw it. Caleb opened the driver's door and stepped out. Across the yard, Emma pressed both hands to the glass, not smiling, not celebrating, but standing taller than she had when her father was fired. Caleb saw her and touched the pocket where the toy SUV rested. Victor approached him before Eleanor could. His voice was low and tight. "You realize what you just did?" Caleb looked at the idling Sentinel X. "I showed you what I already wrote. You made us look unprepared in front of Procurement." "No," Caleb said. "You made us unprepared. The road just confirmed it." Before Victor could answer, Amelia walked out of the observation room with Eleanor beside her. The cameras that had been brought for a launch were no longer recording a launch. They were recording a company trying to understand why the man it had fired was now standing at the center of its only chance to survive the day. Amelia stopped in front of Caleb. For the first time that morning, she spoke without performance. "What do you want?" Caleb looked at her, then at the unsigned release document still lying on Victor's tablet, a full Convoy reproduction. Victor snapped. "Absolutely not." Eleanor looked at him. "Absolutely yes, if the federal evaluation is to continue." Amelia's eyes moved from the SUVs to Caleb, then to Emma behind the glass. She had expected embarrassment. She had not expected dependency. There is a special fear that comes when powerful people realize the person they dismissed was not blocking the road. He was pointing at the bridge that was out. Caleb's voice stayed calm. "One vehicle only tells you the delay exists. 10 tell you what it costs." The 10 black SUVs sat in formation under the morning sun, no longer symbols of Amelia Kade's victory but witnesses waiting for the truth to finish arriving. The first thing Amelia Kade did after the partial test was ask everyone to leave the observation room except the people she thought she could still control. That meant Victor Shaw, 2 senior legal officers, Eleanor Price and Caleb Reed. It did not mean Emma, but Emma stayed visible through the glass wall, sitting beside the receptionist with her small hands folded on her knees. Watching her father the way children watch when they know adults are pretending the truth is less serious than it is. Outside, the 10 black Sentinel X SUVs remained lined in formation under the late morning sun engines, cooling softly, glossy and expensive, and suddenly much less obedient than they had looked in the launch deck. Amelia closed the door with care. "We need to be practical." Caleb stood near the conference table, still wearing the faded work jacket of a man she had fired less than an hour earlier. The empty clip on his chest showed where his employee badge had been. He had not asked for it back. He had not asked for an apology. That made Amelia more uncomfortable than anger would have. Anger gave powerful people something to manage. Calm gave them a mirror. Victor placed both hands on the table. The single vehicle event was minor. A transient warning, brief assist, lagged, no loss of control. We can document it as a calibration concern and proceed with limited certification. Eleanor Price looked at him as if he had just suggested signing a bridge inspection after watching the first cable snap. "You will not proceed with limited certification until I understand whether this condition multiplies across convoy spacing." Amelia turned toward Caleb. "What would satisfy you?" Caleb looked through the glass at the SUVs. "The test I requested 3 weeks ago. Full convoy load. Heat. Rear armor ballast. Lane correction over uneven pavement. 10 vehicles. Proper spacing. Live data." Victor laughed once too sharply. "That is theater." Caleb's eyes shifted to him. "No. Theater was firing the man with the report before the people who read the report arrived." The legal officers looked down. Amelia's jaw tightened, but she did not correct him because every person in the room knew it was true. She changed strategy. Her voice softened just enough to sound generous. "Caleb, you were terminated in a heated moment. I am prepared to reverse that decision immediately. We can reinstate you, issue a corrected statement, and let you lead a supplemental review after today's evaluation. After certification, after provisional progress," Amelia said. "There is a difference. There is a difference between a patient and a corpse, too. That doesn't make the wound small." Victor snapped. "You always do this. You turn technical caution into moral drama." Caleb turned fully toward him. "You turned a safety release into a marketing deadline." The room stopped again, but this time it did not go silent from surprise. It went silent because the argument had finally reached its real name. Eleanor opened her folder. "Mr. Reed, you said the full instrument run was canceled after your warning. Who canceled it?" Caleb looked at Victor. "Program office." Victor's face hardened. "We rescheduled it. Indefinitely." Amelia looked between them. "Victor." Victor adjusted his tablet. "We had completed the equivalent conditions separately. Running a full 10-vehicle combined test before launch would have risked unnecessary delay." Eleanor's pen stopped moving. "That is not an answer to who canceled it." Before Victor could speak again, the observation room door opened. An older man stepped in, carrying a worn leather binder and moving with the slow confidence of someone who had spent enough years inside corporate emergencies to know which ones were still fixable and which ones were already evidence. Marcus Hale, retired program compliance chief, had gray hair, broad shoulders, and the kind of tired eyes that had watched many executives discover that paperwork remembers what people try to forget. Amelia looked startled. "Marcus," he nodded. "Director Price requested historical compliance support last week. I arrived early and heard enough from the hall to know I should not wait outside." Victor's expression changed. "Not much, but enough." Marcus placed the binder on the table. "Caleb's warning was entered into the field validation chain 22 days ago. The required next step was a combined condition convoy test or a documented engineering rejection with named sign-off." Eleanor asked, "Was there a documented rejection?" Marcus opened the binder. There was a procedural substitution. The combined test was replaced by separated variable simulations and individual track runs. "Who authorized the substitution?" Marcus turned one page. "Victor Shaw." Victor's face flushed. "Within my authority." Marcus nodded once. "Yes. If you documented the reason as engineering sufficiency, you did not. You documented it as scheduling alignment." Amelia closed her eyes for a fraction of a second. Caleb saw it, and so did Eleanor. Victor said, "This is being exaggerated." Marcus looked at him calmly. "Then the full convoy test will clear it up." That ended the private room. By early afternoon, the launch banners had been removed from the active test lane. The camera crew was pushed back behind safety fencing. Investors were moved to an observation gallery that had suddenly become much less ceremonial. Engineers placed additional sensors on all 10 black SUVs, while technicians checked thermal systems, ballast distribution, steering logs, braking response, and convoy spacing transmitters. The proving ground no longer looked like a product reveal. It looked like what Caleb had always believed it should be: a place where machines had to tell the truth before people were allowed to trust them. Emma stood near the admin desk with Marcus beside her. He had introduced himself gently, not as someone important, but as someone who had known her father before the company learned how useful he was. She held her backpack with both hands and watched Caleb walk vehicle to vehicle, speaking quietly to technicians who now listened without rolling their eyes. "He really knows all of them?" Emma asked. Marcus followed her gaze. "Your father knows what machines do when they are tired, hot, heavy, and scared. Machines get scared." "No," Marcus said. "People do. Machines just reveal it." At the staging lane, Caleb stopped beside the lead Sentinel X. Eleanor approached with a formal document on her tablet. "Mr. Reed, before this test begins, I need your role clarified. Since you were terminated, Kade cannot rely on you informally." Amelia stepped closer, guarded. "We can reinstate him." Caleb looked at her. "No." The word was simple, but it moved through the group like a gate closing. Amelia's expression tightened. "Excuse me. You fired me in front of my daughter and tried to reduce a safety warning to a personnel issue. I will not walk back in under your authority just so you can call my work internal when it becomes inconvenient." Eleanor nodded slightly, as if this was exactly the answer she expected from someone worth trusting. "Then we proceed under independent consultant authority, director-level procurement witness. Limited scope safety validation of the Sentinel X convoy evaluation. No company retaliation. Full access to data. Written payment terms. Liability protection for good faith findings." Caleb read the document carefully. The proving ground waited. Amelia waited. Victor stared at the pavement. Caleb took longer than anyone wanted him to because he had signed too many things in his life under pressure, and he had learned that urgency was often where other people hid the knife. Finally, he looked at Eleanor. "Add that all test data remains preserved, including the substituted release path." Eleanor typed the line, "Done." "Add that no technician is punished for complying with data production." Another line, "Done." Caleb signed. Only then did he accept a temporary access badge from Eleanor, not Amelia. It had no corporate title on it, just his name and the words "Independent Field Safety Lead." Emma saw it from the fence. Her shoulders changed. It was a small thing, a plastic card on a lanyard, but to a child who had watched her father hand over his badge like a sentence, it looked like the world giving him back his name. The full convoy test began at 2:17 p.m. 10 black Sentinel X SUVs rolled into formation at the west side of the proving ground. Each carried the same load configuration planned for federal executive protection use: armor weight equipment racks, passenger ballast communications modules, and heat-conditioned cabin profiles. The route was not reckless. That mattered to Caleb. He was not trying to create danger. He was trying to reveal the danger already, hiding inside conditions the vehicles would meet in real life. From the observation gallery, Amelia stood with her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles paled. Victor watched the data screens. Eleanor stood beside Marcus, saying nothing. Emma watched the lead vehicle, knowing her father was inside it. The first loop was clean. Speed stabilized. Spacing held. Steering response stayed inside limits. Victor exhaled loudly as if one clean loop could erase the morning. The second loop added heat load and tighter spacing. Still acceptable. Some investors began whispering. Amelia's posture lifted by a degree. Caleb's voice came over the radio. Entering combined condition on third loop. The convoy approached the uneven surface section in formation. Not fast enough to impress a movie audience. Fast enough to matter. The lead SUV hit the first broken strip, corrected left around the simulated obstruction, then right to recenter. For a fraction of a second, the steering assist lag appeared again. The lead vehicle held, but the second SUV responded to the spacing change. Its controller compensated late. The third vehicle braked slightly harder. The fourth drifted wider. Warning lights flashed across 4 data panels in less than 2 seconds. Convoy compression, Talia called from the engineering station. Victor leaned forward. It's within recoverable range. Then the sixth SUV triggered brake bias correction. At the same moment, the seventh adjusted lane position. The spacing alarm sounded. Caleb's voice came over the radio, calm and immediate. Abort sequence. Hold formation. Reduce to safe stop. No sudden correction. One by one, the 10 black SUVs slowed and came to a controlled stop along the test lane. No crash, no smoke, no spectacle. Just 10 expensive vehicles sitting still under the sun because one man had known where the silence in the data was hiding. The observation gallery did not move. Eleanor looked at the live trace. Replay the cascade. The data team replayed it on the main screen. Lead lag. Second compensation. Third brake response. Fourth lateral drift. Sixth, brake bias. Seventh, lane correction. The flaw was not in one dramatic failure. It was in the way one small delay taught the next vehicle to make a worse decision. Marcus spoke first. That is exactly why combined condition testing exists. Victor said nothing. Amelia stared at the screen, and for the first time all day, her fear looked larger than her pride. Can it be fixed? Caleb's voice came from the radio. Yes, but not by signing today's release. Eleanor turned to Amelia. Certification is halted. The Sentinel X federal convoy evaluation is paused, pending redesign, restored combined condition validation, and independent safety review. One of the investors stood. Paused or canceled. Eleanor looked toward the stopped SUVs. Paused because Mr. Reed caught it before certification. Canceled if this company tries to hide it again. That was the moment Amelia understood the shape of her loss. The contract was not gone, but her control of the story was. The launch day triumph had become a safety intervention. Her smooth message had become a record. Her dismissed employee had become the only reason the federal director was still willing to say paused instead of terminated. Victor stepped back from the display. This is not solely my responsibility. Marcus closed his binder. No. But the substitution is yours. Eleanor looked at Amelia. And the firing? Amelia did not answer quickly enough. By sunset, the corporate consequences had begun. Victor Shaw was suspended from the Sentinel program pending formal review. The release chain was locked for audit. Investors were briefed that the evaluation would continue only under independent safety governance. Amelia was required by her board to surrender unilateral launch authority for the Sentinel X program until redesign and validation were complete. Her name remained on the company, but her judgment now had witnesses. Caleb did not celebrate. He spent the evening in a smaller test office with Eleanor, Marcus, Talia, and 2 legal representatives building the first corrected validation plan. He insisted on boring things, documented assumptions named responsibility, preserved raw data technician protection, no marketing language in safety memos. The work was not glamorous. It was honest, which made it feel almost sacred after the morning's theater. Emma fell asleep on a couch near the wall, her backpack under her head. Caleb noticed and lowered his voice. Eleanor noticed him noticing. You can take her home, she said. We have enough for tonight. Caleb looked at the whiteboard filled with test conditions. I don't like leaving it unfinished. Marcus smiled faintly. That is why it will get finished. Amelia appeared at the doorway then. She had changed out of her cream jacket, or maybe removed it because the day had become too heavy to wear like armor. For a moment, she looked less like a billionaire CEO and more like a woman standing outside a room she used to own. Caleb, she said, may I speak with you? Eleanor began to rise, but Caleb shook his head. It's all right. They stepped into the hallway. Through the glass, Emma slept under the harsh office lights, one hand curled near her face. Amelia looked at the child first. I should not have fired you in front of her. No, Caleb said. You shouldn't have fired me for telling the truth. In front of her just made it uglier. Amelia accepted that without defense, which was the first useful thing she had done all day. I thought you were trying to make a point at my expense. I was trying to keep your vehicles from making the point at someone else's funeral. The words were not loud, but Amelia's face changed under them. She looked toward the dark proving ground where the 10 black SUVs sat parked in a row, no longer polished symbols for cameras, but machines waiting to be corrected. The board is appointing an oversight committee. Eleanor wants you to lead the independent validation process. I know. I told them I support it. Caleb studied her. Do you? Amelia took a breath. I support surviving what I did today. I am still working on deserving to. That answer was more honest than an apology polished by legal counsel. Caleb gave her a small nod, not forgiveness, not friendship, just recognition that a true sentence had been spoken. She thinks you're amazing, Amelia said, looking at Emma. She has a generous grading system. No, Amelia said quietly. She saw what I didn't. Caleb looked through the glass at his daughter. She saw me before the SUVs came. Amelia had no answer for that. The next morning, Kade Automotive Defense issued a statement that used careful corporate language, but for once the careful language did not erase the truth. The Sentinel X evaluation was paused for safety refinement. Victor Shaw was removed from launch leadership. An independent validation protocol would be led by Caleb Reed, with federal procurement oversight and full board access. Amelia's name appeared at the bottom, not as the hero of the announcement, but as the executive responsible for allowing correction. Caleb read it once, then placed the tablet down. Emma sat across from him at a diner near the proving ground, eating pancakes, shaped like circles because the cook had failed at bears but tried anyway. Her black toy SUV sat on the table between them. Caleb had returned it after the test, but she had pushed it back toward him. You should keep it at work, she said. I thought it was yours. It is. I'm loaning it. What are the terms? She considered this seriously. You have to bring it home sometimes. And you have to not let mean people make you think you're small. Caleb looked out the window because for a second the diner blurred. 6 years earlier, after his wife died, he had made promises he was not sure he could keep. Get Emma to school, pay the mortgage, pack lunches, show up, stay patient, teach her kindness without teaching her to accept cruelty. He had not known there would be mornings when she watched a billionaire fire him in public and afternoons when 10 black SUVs waited for his word. I can agree to that, he said. Emma poked a pancake with her fork. Did you win? Caleb thought about it. Amelia had lost control of the program. Victor had lost his authority. The contract had been paused, not destroyed. The vehicles would be fixed before they carried people who trusted them. He had a written role, protected access, and a daughter who no longer had to wonder whether silence meant weakness. I didn't fight to win, he said. I fought so nobody would get hurt. Emma nodded like that made perfect sense. To her, maybe it did. Later that day, Caleb returned to the proving ground through the same gate where he had been escorted out. This time, security opened it before he reached the speaker. The 10 black SUVs were parked in the test lane, waiting for disassembly software review and honest validation. They looked different to him now. Not enemies, not trophies, not proof that he mattered because important people had arrived for him. They were work. Serious work. Work that deserved respect because lives might one day sit inside it. He clipped the new independent badge to his jacket. In his pocket, the black toy SUV bumped gently against his field notebook. Talia met him near the lead vehicle. Where do we start? Caleb looked down the line of 10 SUVs, then toward the uneven road strip where the truth had first knocked. We start where everyone wanted to stop looking, he said. Behind him, the proving ground woke into motion. No banners. No cameras. No launch music. Just engineers, technicians, data tools, and a single dad who had been fired for no reason anyone wanted to admit, then called back by the only thing more powerful than a billionaire's pride. The truth on the road.